Welcome back to the Primary Election Candidates Forum. We will now be interviewing our State Representative District 3 candidates. The candidates with us this evening include Representative Eric Barlow and Doug Girard. And here's an introductory statement from each candidate. Candidates, you have 1 minute, and we'll start with Representative Eric Barlow.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, League of Women Voters, Gillette Public Access TV, our guests in the audience, and those of you watching on television. My name is Eric Barlow, and I'm running for re-election for House District 3. 2 years ago, I ran because I felt I could positively contribute to Wyoming, to our community, and to you, the voters. I believe I have. My job was to look for solutions, to be purposeful, practical, do the things that you asked to be done. That's what I'll continue to do with your vote. It is my pleasure, it has been humbling and a pleasure to serve you, and I will continue to do so with your vote. My name is Eric Barlow, and I approve of this message. Thank you.
Thank you. And here's an introductory statement from Doug Girard.
Good evening. I'm Doug Girard, and I'm billed myself as the traditional conservative running for the seat. I did not expect to be running this year. As you may or may not remember, I lost by a scant 90 votes 2 years ago to Representative Barlow. And I was really hoping that when I examined his record that I would find that while Eric and I do not agree on everything, that I would find that he was a good conservative. You know, unfortunately, that's not what I found. From Senate File 104 to attempts to expand Wyoming's Medicaid program as part of Obamacare to the gas tax increase, these are things that ended up happening in the legislature that I found that weren't applying conservative principles. And we need a conservative voice. We need a conservative voice that will speak to protect the Wyoming coal industry, the oil and gas jobs that are coming in the near future. And I'm looking forward to the rest of this question and answer session.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to the first question, which goes to all candidates. Each candidate has 1 minute to respond. And the question is, if elected, what do you hope to accomplish? And this question goes first to Doug Girard.
This was probably the single greatest question and the most important question for me, because what's the point of my candidacy? And that's to work to protect and grow Wyoming jobs. My job as a software engineer, I do a lot of work with NASCAR and Formula One. It's not really involved in Wyoming's economy. And one of the nice things is that that gives me an independent view of what we need to do to grow our jobs. And we need to establish a coal port. We need to get our federal lands transferred back to the state of Wyoming for the American Land Council's idea. These are the core objectives that we need to go through so that we can make Wyoming independent of federal funds that have way too many strings attached. And they are the things I'd like to see accomplished.
Okay, thank you. Now that same question goes to Representative Eric Barlow.
Ladies and gentlemen, what I hope to accomplish is what you want to be accomplished. As you will hear earlier this evening and for the rest of the evening, there are plenty of agendas. My agenda is to listen to you, learn about the issues, and then find solutions. I don't have to change all these things. I'm not going there on a mission except to serve your interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will be for Representative Eric Barlow. You have 1 minute to respond. Eric, in your questionnaire you say, I believe the entire legislature needs to be more involved in the budget process. Could you please elaborate on this?
Thank you. The budget process, while it does get a lot of attention, the majority of that attention is given by the Appropriations Committee, the Joint Interim Appropriations Committee. And when it comes to the body of the legislature, 90 legislators actually considering the budget as a whole, it's limited to about 3 days, 4 if you count for a day of rest. So when we talk about being more involved in the budget and the money, the $10.5 billion over a biennium that the state of Wyoming handles, I believe legislators, individual legislators on behalf of their constituents, on behalf of their communities, on behalf of the state of Wyoming, need to be more involved than they currently are. This is an easy thing to do. The state has the ability, we have the time, we're in control of our time. We just need to decide to be more involved. Some simple rule changes, and we could be. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll give candidate Doug Gerard 30 seconds to rebut.
One of the things that concerned me about House Bill 1 this past session was the number of footnotes that were in it and the number of attempts to do things like include Wyoming in the Obamacare Medicaid expansion. Those things, especially if you look into the what that might end up costing Wyoming, certainly with the recent district court decision concerning Obamacare, these things worry me. I think we need more. We need to really focus on getting the budget without the footnotes and trying to sneak things that failed as bills into the budget, and that would really help the budget process.
Thank you. Our next question goes to Doug Gerard. How do you propose to convert federal lands and mineral rights back to the state of Wyoming?
Well, one of the things that happened way back when Wyoming was admitted to the Union, and this is true of all the states, is that we were admitted on equal footing with all the states. Now, not all the states. It's only states that are west of the eastern border of Colorado have a large percentage of federal ownership. Other states have much lower rate of federal ownership in the state. What we need to do, several states have sued the federal government for the control back of their land. Hawaii, Florida, Nebraska, Oklahoma, all of these have addressed the desire to get the state control back to the lands, and they've done it successfully. We should be able to do that too. And I think if we did that, we'd be able to have a far more independent Wyoming, and Wyoming could take care of its own. Imagine if if the land was run by Wyoming, we would make the decisions and not the federal government, and we could do it a heck of a lot better.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll give Representative Eric Barlow 30 seconds to rebut.
Well, it's always interesting to hear people talk about federal lands and state lands when I'm not sure they have much experience with it. I have experience with both, have federal lands and state lands on our ranch west of Gillette, dealt with the agencies. Now, trading the federal government for the state government doesn't seem like that good a deal to me. I would much rather have those lands in private hands, and in fact, my family was a part of one of those things in a land exchange which reduced the federal foothold in Wyoming by 10,000 acres. So I think there's other options. Those need to be looked at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to closing remarks. Candidates, you have up to 1 minute for closing remarks or to address any topics that were not covered in the questioning period. And we will begin with Doug Gerard.
One of the things that we've often heard about is the legislator's responsibility to listen, to legislate what the people want. And that's very important. But a large part of what goes on in the legislature happens without any interaction from the public. And most folks, if you ask them, there's usually 2 or 3 bills or 2 or 3 issues that come up each session that gets the press's and the public's attention. And that gets input from folks, and that's great. But one of the things about listening, making sure you're understanding their views, being open to their views is very important. But you also have to understand what values that candidate brings down. Because if you're not thinking, if you don't understand the candidate you're voting for and what he stands for, if he's pro-life, pro-family, pro-energy, pro-gun, all these things I am, then you do not know what's really going to happen. You cannot predict the decisions that are going to be made. That's one very important thing, and that's why on my website I post the answers to every question, to every questionnaire that I get, and make that available so people understand that they have a voice and they understand the values that that voice uses to make decisions.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to closing remarks from Representative Eric Barlow.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I need to say a special thank you to my wife. She's been on this journey with me for 2 years, and anybody that's been in this position or been a part of this knows it takes a whole family to be involved in this. So thank you, Kelly. You know, my job as a legislator is to understand before I argue. Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? But it requires doing the homework. It requires going to the town hall, talking to the councilman, Converse County, Wright, in the organizations that represent these communities. That's what I've been doing. That's what I'll continue to do as your representative. Just a couple notes on the gas tax. I voted no. place too much of a burden on families. Healthcare, we've got big challenges in healthcare. Aside from the Affordable Care Act, Wyoming has challenges. We need value, and we should be working hard to get it for our citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Eric Barlow, and I would appreciate your vote in the Republican primary. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the State Representative District 3 part of our primary election candidates forum. Tonight's candidates forum will air several times before the primary election on August 19th. For a complete listing of the GPA TV schedule, please visit their website at www.gillettewy.gov/GPA. We will take a short break while candidates for State Representative District 31 take their position. We will be back in 5 minutes.